Chapter 10, Frank Bix Lee, General Manager. Frank Bix Lee wasn't too thrilled when I showed up inside the African grasslands the morning after Lexington's EF5 tornado. According to Roger, Frank Bix Lee was especially not thrilled when the Channel 5 news team arrived to do a story on my appearance and my missing family following the storm. The reporters called it a human interest piece, and they said that it had a lot of heart. Frank Bix Lee didn't want bad publicity for the zoo. He said people already protest keeping animals, especially elephants, in captivity. Mr. Bix Lee didn't want anyone getting ideas that the animals were unsafe or that the zoo didn't have a good handle on the cleanup and repairs after the storm. Roger didn't want the news station to do the story either. Not the way the reporters planned it. He wanted them to make the story about my missing family because he promised me he'd do everything he could to find them. But the reporters were much more interested in the sensational stuff. That I survived a tornado, that I tamed an African elephant, which is ridiculous. But as general manager, Mr. Bix Lee agreed to let them film the story inside the zoo if they included information that would sell more tickets. He announced a short-term closure while they assessed the damage and assured animal health and safety. And then he announced that the reopening would include a free day at the zoo for all children with paying adults. The reopening would feature limited tickets to view elephant training and a chance to see Naya, the heroic elephant who had saved the little girl. Now it seems like he would have sold tickets to see me if somebody had let him. I'm much older now, so I know that Mr. Bix Lee and the reporters never meant for what happened next. But it did. Somehow, people and the other reporters heard the elephant who saved the girl and turned it into the elephant girl. And that didn't go very well when I started school. So despite the publicity, no one claimed to be my family. But I'm fairly certain, after all these years, that they would have come if they could have. Chapter 11, The Trees. I stride through the weed grass, some of it thorny and flowering, and my steps send up little clouds of plant dust mixed with bug swarms. Some of the bugs are light green like the grass, smaller than a seed, and they settle on my clothes and in my hair. I swat them off, but then they're replaced by more. I finally give up swatting and aim for the denser part of the trees where the branches shade the earth. The trees are far apart at first, and the sun beats on my head in the rising humidity until my curly hair is thicker than a wool blanket. Sharp, dead branches litter the ground from past storms. No one ever goes in here, at least I don't think they do. Maybe I should go back to the old county bank and put on some boots and change my shorts for long pants before wading in any farther. Suddenly, though, the tangle of bushes and dead wood is replaced by softer dirt and an easier path. The thick weeds don't grow in the shade. I've reached a spot where the trees are more dense, where the long-reaching branches nearly touch each other and only scattered sunlight makes it all the way to the ground. I've stayed close enough to the zoo's west fence that I can still see part of it beyond the trees. The gray roof of the ape house and the chimp's tall climbing poles are barely visible here, but I can easily see the giraffe encounter's blue roof. Exploring this side of the zoo fence by myself wasn't what I'd thought I'd be doing today, but I also didn't think I'd hear Naya's low rumble and see her thoughts again. I was so young when I wandered into Naya's enclosure, looked into her eyes, and saw the image of a mama elephant and her baby that I've sometimes wondered whether it really happened. But now I know it did. I wish I could have talked it over more with Fisher, and suddenly I picture myself standing on the sidewalk as Fisher rode away in that city bus, and I feel like Karana from the island of the Blue Dolphins as she watched her people sail away from the island. The zoo is like my island. I stay here because it feels safer than leaving. My family is gone, but the zoo is my home. This tangled wood outside the fences is a weird middle place between my island and the outside, a waiting zone where nothing good or bad happens. The wind kicks up the leaves around my feet. Unlike Naya's low rumble that passes through me like invisible waves, the wind speaks in ticklish whispers. "You shouldn't be here," the wind says. "What do you care?" I answer in my head. Whether I speak out loud or in my head, the wind never directly answers my questions. If it did, I would have had the answer about my family a long time ago. "You should listen to me." For something that owes me big, the wind sure tells me what to do a lot. "I'd rather listen to Naya," I answer. And it's true. Although I'm not sure yet what Naya was trying to tell me exactly, I prefer her rumblings and pictures to the wind's words. I think Naya hopes I will find something out here where the wind doesn't want me to be, and I'm too curious not to keep trying. Besides, Fisher left on the 9:40 bus, so I'm pretty sure I will have a little more than 2 hours before I need to be at Wild Eats to meet Roger at lunch. I've never been outside the zoo entirely alone and without a way to tell time. I don't have a watch because I've never needed one inside the zoo. Clocks in every building and train whistles at the station keep everything inside the zoo on schedule. I suppose I could listen for the train whistle out here too, but it won't tell me which hour or half hour we're on. I look up through the canopy of branches overhead and try to notice where the sun is. Who am I kidding? I have no idea how to tell time by the sun. I'm not much like Karana with that outdoor survival kind of thing. Well, I figure I can head back when my water runs out and I get thirsty. That won't take too long in this heat. I continue deeper into the shade, angling slightly away from the fence. A breeze rustles the branches, and at the exact same time, my skin prickles all over my arms and on the back of my neck, like something just snuck up behind me. I turn around, but everything looks the same as it did before. I turn again and see something long and blue fluttering between two trees. The blue something is thin and wispy and lets the sunlight through it. With goosebumps still rising on my skin, I move closer to the fluttering thing. It's fabric. It's some kind of fancy scarf. And it's attached to a lady. I'm pretty sure it's the lady I saw in Naya's images. And she's sitting at a patio table beneath the awning of what looks like a giant silver can of ham, an old-fashioned trailer. She's wearing a light blue business suit and a tilted hat that makes her look like one of those movie stars from the black and white films that Roger likes to watch. She sips something from a teacup and sees me and sets her teacup gently on a saucer. It makes a satisfying clinking sound. "Well now," she calls out, "don't you look worn out?" She speaks Southern, big time. "Why don't you come and sit a spell?" Chapter 12, Something Lost. Now, I'm used to meeting new people inside the zoo, but outside the zoo, it's different. I feel exposed. I'm not attached to the ground enough. I might blow away like my family. The wind rustles the branches and my skin prickles into goosebumps again, even though it is so hot that my forearms are sweating. The lady waves me over like she's telling me it's normal for me to visit her at this tin can trailer that probably has no business being parked on this property. I don't mind about her trailer. It's just that if Mr. Bix Lee learns that someone is camping out here, he'll have her out before she can pack up her patio furniture. "Who are you?" I call to her as I step over another fallen log toward the lady in the trailer. It's not the politest way to greet someone, I realize after I've said it. "Why, I'm Miss Amanda Holtz," the lady answers, "but you may call me Miss Amanda, darling." I'm near her table now, but I don't step close enough to be under the striped pink awning just yet. "Hello, Miss Amanda. What are you doing here?" Again, not very polite, but people can't just decide they live in the woods outside the zoo fence. "Aw, come sit down, child. I don't bite." Miss Amanda taps the chair next to her at the table. She has some biscuits set out on a plate, and a fat little teapot in the center of the table drips with condensation. It smells like cranberries and mint. It might be the tea, or it might be the biscuits, or it might be Miss Amanda, perhaps all three. I sit, but not beside her. She has 4 chairs at this picnic table, so I choose the one across from her. Well, I'm here because I have some business at the zoo, Miss Amanda says once I've sat down. Oh? Immediately, I imagine this small, skinny woman pulling off her long scarf and tossing it over a branch, hoisting herself above the zoo fence and climbing inside under the cover of darkness. What sort of business? I ask. None of your business, the wind says, tossing one of my frizzy curls into my face. Well, I need to speak with Frank Bix Lee, answers Miss Amanda. She moves her hands and arms a lot when she speaks. It's like her movements need to make up for how small she is. Does Mr. Bix Lee know that you have this trailer set up out here? Ha! Miss Amanda Holtz laughs. Oh, my heavens, she says finally. You sure do know how to make someone feel welcome. Tea? She lifts the teapots and holds it over an empty cup, waiting for my answer. The thing is, I'm not sure she's actually holding the teapot. It's almost like the pot moved a millisecond before she touched it. I think I can see a tiny space between the handle and her fingers. Or maybe it's just the weird shadows in the woods. I nod, if only to watch her pour the tea and set the pot down. I don't think I'd actually pick up a cup and drink something offered to me by a perfect stranger, alone in the woods outside the zoo. Miss Amanda smiles and pours a purplish-red tea from the pot. A sweet cranberry spice smell rises into the air. Well, it's not your usual sweet tea, but I've come to like teas with a little gumption. Don't you worry about me or Mr. Bix Lee. It'll all work out. Now, something about the combination of Miss Amanda's small body and big gestures, or her cheerful tone, or the cranberry spice and the lingering mint is encouraging. Encouraging enough to trust her. A little. I came into the woods because Naya's rumblings and pictures showed me these trees and showed me a lady in a fancy dress. And I'm pretty sure that lady is Miss Amanda. So maybe that's another reason I can trust her, because I trust Naya. Miss Amanda pushes the teacup and saucer across the table, and I set it in front of me. Thank you, I say. Now, if you don't want to drink it, that's fine. You don't know me, and you're a smart girl to be cautious, said Miss Amanda, adjusting the angle of her elegant gray hat and leaning back in her chair. A key on the small chain around her neck settles on the top button of her business suit. It's just a habit of mine to offer tea and biscuits to visitors. Now, you can leave the South, but Southern hospitality follows. Where are you from? The wind swirls my hair into my eyes. Go home, it nags. Get off, I tell the wind, wishing I had Naya's strength to shut it out. Well, I'm from Alabama, a beautiful place, Miss Amanda says. You ever been there? No, I've never been anywhere but here. I really have no idea where I was before I showed up at the zoo. I bite my lip. I'm thinking of the last image I saw from Naya, the one with the 3 elephants. The next question I want to ask is going to sound strange. I'm just going to go for it. Miss Amanda, do you know any elephants? I mean, have you worked with elephants or been around them? Now, Miss Amanda, who's been holding her teacup to her lips, sits perfectly still for a moment. And then she moves the cup from her mouth and slowly lowers it to the saucer with another tiny clink. She presses her berry-colored lips together in a line which smooths out the wrinkles around her mouth. Her eyes, which I notice now are very blue, look like they're trying to see through the back of me. Now, when you say you've never been anywhere but here, do you mean this town or this zoo? Both. And what is your name? Maybe she knows me. If she knows Mr. Bix Lee, then maybe she's been to the Lexington Zoo before, and maybe she worked here when I was young, and I just don't remember her. I'm Lexington Willow. Many people just call me Lex. Miss Amanda's expression doesn't change. My name doesn't seem to mean anything to her. I live I live with Roger Marsh. Now, I don't know if I've said too much. I'm giving personal details to a stranger, a sort of stranger, who knows Frank Bix Lee. Roger Marsh, Miss Amanda repeats as though she's trying to find a memory. Is that the train engineer? Yes. He lives in an old bank building at the corner near the aviary and the main station? Yes, I say again. Somehow Miss Amanda knows Roger, and I feel a little better knowing this. Miss Amanda smiles. She picks up her teacup with a satisfied sigh, and again I think I see the cup move slightly independent of her fingers, almost like she coaxed it into her hand. The sun slants through the tree branches that shade this spot, but it's blocked by the trailer's striped pink awning. The light rays behind Miss Amanda, who sits in shadow, must be playing tricks with my eyes. So you live with Roger Marsh? Yes. But he's not your family. Well, not exactly. I mean, he sort of found me. It sounds like I was a lost puppy. Miss Amanda wrinkles up her forehead like she's either confused or concentrating real hard. She stares at my face, and then at my hair, which is surely even more wild and frizzy thanks to the humidity and the wind. Suddenly, her eyes go wide like she just realized something. Did he happen to find you after a storm? A tornado, I say. Oh, I remember! Miss Amanda exclaims, and I jump in my seat, nearly knocking over the teacup in front of me. How can you remember that? Were you at the zoo then? Well, as a matter of fact, I was. Oh my goodness, I'm a mess these days, and I can't seem to remember anything better than my own name unless somebody reminds me. But you reminded me of something, and now I remember. Do you remember me? Miss Amanda leans closer, and her necklace clinks against the table. Oh, you were such a little pint back then, and I didn't get a good look at your face, but if Roger found you after a tornado, then it has to be you. I was there that night. I was the one who showed Roger where you were. But even the cicadas pause their incessant chirping. The wind keeps silent. It stops playing with the tree branches and the leaves. Everything in these woods is now listening. Everything seems to know the very same detail that I feel taking shape in my brain as I realize the light and shadows have not been playing tricks on me. Roger says that the person who led him to me was a ghost.